Hello and welcome. My name is Brad Ward, and I just am so glad that so many people could join us today. Mac Johnson joining us today, and Mac is a sound designer and all-around wonderful person. He's presently the market development manager for Point Source Audio. He's designed and engineered numerous productions all around the world, and I've known him through his excellent work in the area of education.
When was that? Brad, we met in 2007 when you were still at
At
Love,
Beautiful
right?
Love,
Yeah,
yep, yep. You
yeah, yeah.
came with Bob
Okay,
McCarthy, and I think you did a 2 or 3 day workshop, and my head just about exploded, I'll have to say.
right. Well, so I've taken almost as many sim classes as Bob has.
Hmm. Yeah,
Cheers.
yeah.
Yeah,
But Mac's also done a lot of Broadway tours. He's worked for Tony Meola, Stephen Kennedy, and he's done symphonies, orchestras. He's done all kinds of stuff. So he's a true expert in this field of mic. So we're all going to learn. I mean, we did a rehearsal the other day, and I learned some stuff that I was a little behind on some things, but I also picked up some things that I just never knew. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm also grateful to Point Source for Yvonne and Eric and the whole team there for putting this webinar together. It's really, so far, I just can't believe the response that we've had. And I think hopefully you all enjoyed it as much as I am going to enjoy it. So I guess we go to the next slide.
yeah. Oh, sorry, my clicker wasn't working. Let's try it now.
Well, I guess I get to talk about myself. Yikes. I'm a sound designer as well, and I'm a senior associate at Apeiro Design. And I'm really grateful to Apeiro for their support of my work with OISTAT. They are interested in education and furthering the field of design, and they've been good to sponsor me being a part of that. But what we do at Apeiro is we're theatrical consultants. We design performing arts centers, lecture halls, any kind of performance space. And you can see some of the things we do there to the left. The picture there is a shopping mall that we did with an experiential media presentation that happened out in this atrium. And we had all kinds of sound and video. It was really amazing. The animation that went along with it was done by Weta Digital. So that was a cool project to be part of. But again, we're going to let you know how to get in touch with us at the end of all this. So if you need a theater design, please call me, or if we could ever help you in any way. Next is, I believe, the OISTAT. I told you a bit about OISTAT, the Sound Design Subcommission. I was nominated and elected as chair about a year and a half ago, and it's a 4-year term. So I'm trying to do the things you'll list that you see there on the screen. But in a nutshell, our aim is to bring the world together through sound. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been a part of OISTAT since, I guess, 2002 was my first experience. And Rick Thomas was the chair, and he's the one that brought sound design into OISTAT. So I'm really grateful to now be in this role. And we just host webinars. We do occasional chat times between our members. I see a few on there now that are OISTAT members. You're all invited to become members. I'll talk about that a little bit more at some point as well as we have time. But we have probably 20 different countries represented, and the largest thing that we do every year, well, every 2 years, we do a thing called Sound Kitchen. And the next one is going to be at World Stage Design, which is one of the largest events that OISTAT produces. And it will be in Sharjah, UAE, and it's a design expo. And a lot of you probably have been to it before, but it goes to a different country every 4 years. And again, if you go back one slide to the one in Sharjah, we have several opportunities for you. If you want to exhibit your work, you can enter that. That call is open until May 13th. If you want to give a workshop, a talk, a performance, anything like that, there's a call for those. That call is open until October 7th. And then Sound Kitchen is what I'll talk about on the next slide, which is the biggest thing the Sound Subcommission does. But then there's plenty of other opportunities on the website, and it's just a fun thing to go to. So I encourage you to check into that that link there, and we'll also send this to you in an email later. So yeah, now we can go to the next one about Sound Kitchen, which I became part of through OISTAT. I guess at the Prague Quadrennial, it happens at the Prague Quadrennial, which is on the off years from World Stage. They do a quadrennial. It's a design expo, and it's more for country exhibits versus World Stage Design is more for individual designers. But they all have workshops and things, and Sound Kitchen happens there. And Sound Kitchen is an opportunity for sound designers and composers who work in all forms of sound and performance audio to publicly present or perform their work in a listening friendly environment. And I was a curator for the one in Calgary a couple of years ago, and we kind of pulled out all the stops. We had a Timex system, we had a SpaceMap Go system, and we had a Soundscape system, and you could choose whichever one you wanted to use. And that's the control table there. And we actually streamed both directions, performers and streamed to people that were in the audience. So it's a lot of fun, and you get to meet some really, really wonderful people. So that's Sound Kitchen. And I believe that's that. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So I'll just give a quick rundown about Point Source Audio. As you
Yeah.
probably know, we make little tiny body microphones and some communication headsets. But we started as a manufacturer for other folks, and then we got some patents with regard to some of the asks that we were having. Like trying to find a place in the market that wasn't like me too. So unbreakable booms, waterproof mics, and all up to our Series 9 microphone, which is kind of a Goldilocks microphone with a high SPL, low noise tolerant, high sensitivity. And I think this is the official beginning of our presentation. So thank you all, Brad. Thanks for the introductions and stuff. Are we ready to roll?
Yeah, I think so. Let's just let everybody know that they're welcome to put questions in the chat or in the Q&A spot, and we'll address those at the end. We have so many people. I don't think we're going to open the mics at this point, but
We are at 64, so that's a
wow,
very
that's
good
great.
number.
Yeah,
60. We had about 114 signups, and that's a
yeah,
pretty good attrition rate.
that's
So we
wonderful.
appreciate you guys taking the time to spend some time with us.
Yeah,
And here we go. So,
get going.
theater sound design, I'm going to roll with it, Brad, and call you in if that works for you. And
Absolutely.
and also jump in when you can. I have a tendency to kind of take a deep breath and go until, um, you know, until I run out of air. So, as you know, sound design, there's a lot of components to it, but we're going to be talking primarily about the microphone bits. So first, we'll talk about various mic placements and, to maximize the sound clarity, the best signal to noise ratio. We're going to try to give you some hints and tips on to mitigate some common problems with little microphones and speakers, which is feedback, muffled sounds, dropouts, and RF. And also explore different mic placements and their advantages and disadvantages, as well as the comfort and ease of getting a microphone on a performer. And then, based on your criteria for your specific performance, look at the various mic placements for that. So Brad, if you could talk a little bit about this is super crucial in as far as the sound chart is concerned, meaning what the actor is, where the mic is, so that you have some consistency the day to day for your front of house board operator. Let's talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. This is, I mean, we've called it Wireless Mic Bible, and this is straight from the USIDT documentation standard that I was a part of the committee that developed that. But it's really important to track all this information. I personally use FileMaker Pro if I'm doing a show, and I take this data and I can print it out in different formats. One is something that actually sticks on the pack. If you have to change it out at the last minute with another one, you'll have all the settings there and you can change them, whatever. But these are all the things that you need to keep up with. And it's really important if you're not there, if you're the A2 or whoever's on the deck putting the mics on these people to understand exactly what you need to do. And Mac's going
Yeah,
to talk about
it's
all the,
important to document because you with so many actors and the speed at which you might have to somebody goes out, somebody comes in, there's no way to remember for sure what they need if actor 2 is replaced with actor 21. So if you
Mhm.
have all that information, you can do it quickly. And then if there is a need for a change of position, or if a director gets a note, then you would update this so that your information is current, because that's part of the role, is being consistent, whether it's consistently good or bad. That's a matter of opinion, but consistent is what the artistic staff is looking for in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So if you want to see this and read more about it, you can go to that link, or you can just search for USIDT Sound Commission's um, documentation standards.
Right on. And so first, we'll take a quick look at the basic polar patterns. We will talk about them in two basic: omnidirectional, which is a microphone here. If you say this is on axis at 0 degrees, this microphone, an omnidirectional microphone, picks up the same amount of energy from all sides, and that would be across the front to back, as well as left to right, or in any of those axes. It's omnidirectional. Now, I will say that if you put this next to someone's face, obviously, if this microphone is here next to someone's face, it's only going to pick up from that side. And there's some little physical bits that happen with putting a Omni mic next to a flat surface. Now, on the cardioid, there are a variety of supercardioids and hypercardioids and supercalifragilistic expialidocious cardioids out there, but in this sense, we're going to just talk about them with just general a cardioid. So on axis is where it picks up the most energy, and as you move off axis towards the rear of the microphone, you can see that it's picking up less and less and less energy. So these are what would be directional or cardioid microphones, and this gets its shape from the Greek word that describes the shape of the heart, and no surprise there, because it is an upside down heart when you take a look at it. And then there are some elements, and we'll go into some detail on where these might be useful. They're dual elements. Here's a case of two Omni microphones, and this would clearly be for redundancy. So you have two microphones here, and with two, and we'll go into that detail how that works as well. But this is an interesting animal here, because this would be a Omni microphone and a cardioid microphone here. So there's a variety of different places that you might use them, and we can get into that maybe on the next slide or two. So when you're looking for redundancy, there's a couple of things to consider. Is that you may need to make sure that the elements are matched, because you can imagine if you had this is your main and this is your backup, if their sensitivity is off by more than like a half a decibel, when you go from one to the next, it could be a change to either getting louder or quieter. So it's important to have matched elements when you are using these types of microphones, whether it's redundancy or looking at this CO2 here. This particular mic has no shared electrical components. It is two elements, two wires in one jacket that goes to two connectors. And you can see that it's a pretty, the profile of this is a single element, this is a dual element. So you're not adding a lot of real estate to someone's forehead by having a dual element. And as far as managing it, it's a lot easier to manage the cables because you have one instead of two. Then there's something this was somebody, one of the designers on Broadway for a tour, asked us to make this for him because he couldn't justify the expense of having the entire cast on two transmitters, because that would have been kind of expensive. So what they were able to do was to put two microphones on a person and then connect them to this, and then that would go to the transmitter. And there's a little AB switch here. So this is a passive mic switcher. Yep, you betcha. If you hit this while the fader is up, you hear the big pop. Sounds like you're unplugging and plugging in a microphone, but I would imagine that this is a lot easier to deal with than trying to dress somebody in a wig and getting another microphone disconnected from a transmitter, and then the next one dangling down in there, reconnected, because it has happened to me where I've had two microphones on a person with one plugged into the transmitter, and then I unscrew it, and then someone says my name, and then I've forgotten what I've unscrewed, and then I screw a random mic back in. I had a 50-50 chance, Brad, of getting the right mic in. This is pretty interesting. So because you could always have them connected. and then you would just hit this with a greenie. Anybody know what a greenie is and why somebody would be shouting for one? Because there were some consoles that had little screws for their matrix things, and you can only operate them with a
Is this
greenie.
is this one?
Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute. Is it? I can't
no,
see.
no, no, no,
No,
no,
that's
no.
a ready.
I
It's
found my
basically the
greenie.
same thing.
Can you believe we didn't even rehearse this, but I
Okay, you got a greenie
there's one
standby.
right by my desk.
Because if you're a sound person, this is really all you need. You don't even need channel locks, right? I used to walk around
Or
with
duct tape.
I used to walk around with on stage from stage left to stage right, just right in the middle of the load in with a portable bandsaw just to scare everyone. They're like, what is that sound guy doing with a bandsaw? He's
Great.
gonna hurt
I'm
himself.
gonna try
Anyway,
that.
so
But
why would you use
that's a really cool box. That's a great idea.
yeah, so you would use it for redundancy, you're using one transmitter. And also if you've got, two wigs in two mics in somebody's wig and, changing a mic out or for quick changes or getting a mic in the costume is not possible and you need to switch from one to the other. So certainly this would be a coordinated effort. The front house guy would say something like, hey, go to the backup. They would go off stage on their next change, or whatever scene change or whatever, and then hit the switch, and then you'd be ready to go. And here we go. So dual pattern mics are interesting. You could use these in a lot of different, for a lot of different ways. And some of our users and abusers of this technology have found that you could use these for situations where you were doing a broadcast and you would use one element, and then a live space you would use another. We actually had one Broadway guy use them both and combined the cardioid and the cardioid for his magic sound. Not something that would come to my mind, but I did put one of these in the sound hole of my acoustic guitar, Brad, and I went, Eureka! I got the fat, roundness of the guitar through the Omni, and then the direct sound coming out of the sound hole through the cardioid. Again, it's a tool. You use it for what you need it for. There are no shared electronics. Again, this is two microphones, one jacket, and two connectors at the end. So it's one of the nice things about it is that when you're dressing somebody with two microphones, you just got to deal with one cable. So sensitivity is often, and this is something Brad will elaborate on in a minute, but basically what you're looking for in a subminiature microphone is that it's a sensitivity is something that you're concerned with because there are three things that you have to kind of balance with a miniature cardioid microphone is the signal to noise or self noise ratio or noise floor. Its ability to convert sound pressure on the input of the microphone into a usable voltage on the output, and also the high SPL level max before distortion. So if you have a very soft signal, like this is softer than that because you can see the amplitude is little, it would put out a usable voltage. So converting this amount of air pressure to a certain amount of voltage. And then if you had a low sensitivity microphone where somebody's very loud, it would then put out less voltage, but giving you an operating range. Now, Brad, you know what VU stands for, right? No?
I believe it means volume units.
It is volume units, right? It wasn't even calibrated. So they just called them volume units, and each manufacturer had whatever this was. It may be 1.7 volts. It might be a half a volt. So yeah, volume units is something we don't really see much anymore, do we? It's in dBV, right? So there you have it.
dBU, dBU, dBm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of really important formulas we're supposed to know, right?
Yeah, and here's one of you can elaborate since you went to college or did you
Yeah,
were out
yeah. I mean, if you think the
you were
square root
out that day. I think you were out
of
that day.
1138 is yeah, let's go to the
Yes.
next.
Yeah, next slide. Okay. Yeah, basically what this is the formula that converts the where 1 pascal of air pressure puts out 1 volt. And this is how you would calculate it because no microphone on Earth puts out 1 volt at 1 pascal. It's a fictitious microphone, but to have the scale, this is the formula you would use. And if you want more information on that, you have to go somewhere else because we are moving on.
Yes, thank you.
So, and also there's a lot of performances that are require you to match the skin tone. And as you can imagine, there are many skin tones out there. And then some microphones, like the ones that we sell, are paintable with a variety of paint pens and makeup paints and things like that. So let's move on to placements, and we've got some slides here for you. Here's a University of North Carolina School of the Arts graduate students doing recordings of various microphones types in various positions. So she's got them on the top of here. She's also have them on the lapel as well. And you can go to their website, University of North Carolina Schools of Arts, Google that and mic positions, and I think they have that data online for you to listen to. Basically, they all sound great and in all positions, but they're just for different reasons. Like this would work here, but if you had a big giant sombrero on or a big hat, maybe a mic on the top of the head wouldn't work. And if any you have any music whatsoever, everybody knows the beard mic. This Brad was that your design, and why didn't you choose white? No, not your design. So yeah, so this is a bass player of extraordinaire. You can Google Les Skylar, Skyoar, I think, and he's played with a lot of people. He's got hundreds, if not thousands, of album credits. So he's in your music collection if you have any music whatsoever. And I didn't. The first time I saw the slide, I thought this was a boom microphone, but this is actually a microphone mounted on a headband. It's a big microphone, but Brad has made an addition to it here using the ear clip. This is
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
yeah. Is that your tongue sticking out or is
I think so. Yes,
okay?
I'm very excited.
All right. Yeah. So this is a trumpet mic or something. Brad's got needed a boom real quick. So this Actors Equity was not really fond of this idea. So Brad had to change his design entirely
Yeah.
to take this on. All right. So getting a little
But the previous slide made me think of when we did Rose Tattoo, we had two lav mics in Marissa Tomei's hair, and the packs were on the back of her head, and she actually made us buy this mesh, this Faraday mesh, because she didn't want that RF going into her brain. So it's interesting the things that you have to do when you're packing up actors.
Yeah, I'd like if that ever comes up again, I'd like some more documentation on that to actually figure out if it um, focused cosmic rays to the pituitary
Yeah,
from your feet, or did it actually block something from the back of the head? Okay,
I
all
don't
right.
know. It made her feel better though. So
Yeah,
if
that's all that matters. Yeah, doctor, sound technician. Yeah, so just so you folks know that I am a completely recovered Broadway touring sound engineer. I've been off the road for over 25 years. It's in a lot of cases they're a traveling psych trauma unit. And here we go. So mic placements we have are around the brassiere, bra line, if you will, and then or bust line, and then in the hair, and then over the ear. So let's just talk about a few of those places. Here's a guy that was on a talk show, and he's wearing an ear mount here, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But basically, it's a lavalier in a special mount. He was using a lavalier, but it looked like it was zip tied to the head hair. Ouch, is all I could say. Ouch. Have you ever used zip ties on somebody's hair, Brad?
no, I've used them for a lot of things, but not that.
That's. Hmm. I have no words. I'm sure there are some out there, but I can't. This is a family show, so we'll just move on again. And
Somehow I
here,
don't think
Brad,
that's equity.
right? So back when Brad and I were young, these were lavaliers. These are actual lavalier microphones, and this is what you wore around your neck, and you wore it at your tie. And these things are huge. I mean, this thing is about the size of a dime around and about 2 inches long. This is actually a little bit bigger than that, and you can see there's some familiar brands there. So that was lavaliers
I
then,
remember
and
that. The one on the right was what our pastor at the church I grew up at wore.
Right. And look at how thick that cable is. I mean, it's still,
Yeah.
that cable is still rotted and chipped away after time. Remember that? And it just
Yeah,
like fell apart.
that's that braided EV cable
Hmm.
that's what we used to make mic cables out of. Oh my gosh. We used
Right.
greens to unbraid it. Never mind. I'm going off on a tangent.
All right. Tangents are accepted. This is sound, so tangents are kind of expected. So that was lavaliers then. Lavaliers now, as you know, every manufacturer makes the tiniest little lavaliers and a variety of accessories to conceal them. Like these caps here. Some microphones like this one with the W in it. That's IP57. Oops, sorry about that. I clicked on the screen. That meant go to the next slide. So the W here it means it's IP57 rated. So this microphone is submersible underwater for 1 meter of water for about a half an hour. And you cannot use it to mic shrimp or record uh, ocean mammals or anything like that, or snapping shrimp or anything like that. What it basically means is it's expected to survive being submerged underwater. So if it gets sweated out, you can actually clean it with isopropyl alcohol, put it in a jewelry bath, and clean it that way. And then it's expected to survive once it dries out. And then I would look at the ear mounts, and this looks like a Isomax here. These are Hellerman sleeves. There's one on the Hellerman tool. And all you have to do to run fear in any actor is to pull this out and say that you're going to put a microphone on it's really a terrifying device. But basically what it does is it takes this elastic tube and expands it so you can run the cable microphone in here and then pull it away and adding the sleeve to it. So we used to make these out of and this looks like is this a mask product, Brad? Or is this Beltone, or what is this? Where did this come from?
I
Do you
don't
know?
think it's a mass product, but they actually sell it. And I happened to have one in a bag that I had showed to a client the day
Gotcha.
before we rehearsed. So I left it out. It's actually Bosch. Bosch
Bosch.
Security Systems makes that.
Okay, yeah. So we had some like that back in the 90s that looked like this that were also made of plastic that were Beltone hearing aid mounts. And then we would use rose wire, fishing line, and copper, solid core copper wire coat hangers, anything that we could do to shape this in. And you can imagine after 8 shows of hairspray, sweat, and makeup that these became a small, super fun cleanup site and that nobody wanted to touch. And we had to make them sometimes when actor A went out and actor Z came in to sing in her place or his place. So it took quite some time to make them. And so the ask was, can Point Source make something that's a little that we can get on and off people a little quicker? And I think the answer was a resounding yes. So what you've got here is a mount with a channel in the back here. You would trim this mount to maybe this shape to go over the ear. You would then shape it to the ear. You would trench the cable inside this little channel here, and then you would tuck that bottom into that little pressure point behind your ear. Now, the idea is that if this is fitted correctly, um, you can shake your head like a wet dog and it won't fly off. But if it's misshaping the ear, it's on too tight. And these are the only disadvantage that I can think to these is that everybody will want these. These were used super most common in folks with no hair, because you could almost hide the microphone there, but also for swing dance numbers because Brad could sing Happy Birthday and he got a microphone for Juna's busting out all over every time he was in the show. So, but we needed to get a mic on him quickly, and then he can go sing Juna's busting out all over, and then come off stage, take it off, and hand it to the sound guy, and we wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol and get it ready for the next show.
That's great. I had to call that client that I had showed the mask product and tell them about this. So hopefully I sold you a few of those.
Okay. Well, so, and then, in the hairline, we're all familiar with this. This is a clove hitch with a half hitch on top and then a clove hitch. And so this elastic string would then go around the back of the head and then tie to the microphone cable itself in the back, so the cable would then pop down behind behind the neck. In Les Mis, we just used a elastic string that went around, and we just kind of looped it around, but the microphones were almost always pointing off to this side. And there was a good argument that it didn't matter where it was pointing, because there are omnidirectional, but I think that most designers prefer them to point in the direction of the sound, because there is some things that happen with related to the shape of the face, the sound traveling like a waveguide across the person's face. And that even comes into play here on the side as well. So as you move the microphone from the top to the side, there are some tonal differences, but most of us have consoles with decent EQs, and we can shape that color any way we want. So using the mic string is one way. The toupee clip, you would then take this toupee clip and then wrap the microphone cable through here, weave it into the hair. These little tines go facing down, and then you put it in like a bobby pin, and then snap it into the hair. You might use 2 or 3 of these. For instance, if you were wanting the microphone to be here, you would part her hair this way, put a toupee clip here at the back of the head, one in the middle and one at the front, then fold the part back over, and the microphone could pop out there. It's pretty common. And then you can see that this, all wigs have netting, but sometimes we'll leave the netting a little higher, longer, because really this is helped to secure within the use of there's somebody on here I know that I saw that was signed up this in hair and makeup. There is some kind of a glue or light adhesive that folks use to hold this into place. So you can go out and do torpedoes and dancing, and often you'll put the microphone underneath that netting and then put some makeup base on top of it to conceal the microphone. Now, I will say that concealing microphones is used to be super important on a lot of the traditional shows. For instance, like the King, the Gershwin shows and Rush and Hammerstein, where all those shows were created without sound. And so the idea of creating the illusion of mics not being there was important, and so that therefore we hid the microphones. And certainly, and there's some operas that do use microphones that hide them, because you're not supposed to use the mic in an opera, right? Because I guess if it's in Prussian, we don't need to amplify it, because Brad, you don't understand Prussian, right? Why would you mic it?
Exactly.
Okay. So the advantages are in having a microphone on the ear or over the top here, is if these folks look to the left or right, up and down, the placement remains constant with the sound source here. So the challenges is if you're in a game before a feedback situation, you've been using boom microphones, you're about 6 dB away here. So if you're suffering from game before feedback issues here, you move the microphone 6 dB away, yep, you're going to be even more having more challenges with game before feedback. And I will say that it's in a lot of cases, like weaving it into the hair or underneath the wig, it's a little more difficult. And also then you have to manage the cable through the wig or through your hair to the back. Whereas if it's just on an ear mount, it's kind of just falls right behind your ear. There have been instances, this is a boom microphone here. This normally, like, this is a single ear version of it. And they're bendable to 100% bendable in 180 degrees. So you could make a stiff microphone here, woven into, placed in the hair or underneath a wig, so that it's rigid and you can point it once it's in place any direction you want. Not as common, but it's been done. Again, these are tools for you to use and abuse, not for me to tell you how to hold it and use it. So on the ear, there's a couple of different ways to wear it, but you can see here's over the ear and then under the ear. When you look at this mount, this is the way that it's shipped, and this one just has been clipped right there. Does that make sense? Good. So this offering a more discreet coverage, you can blend this into the color of the hair or skin, and then more gain because you're a lot closer to the sound source. And this slide here demonstrates that if you're wearing it here on the lapel, you see this all the time. The talking heads on newscasting, wearing the microphones here. Lapel is a man's word, and you can see that this requires a lot of cable dressing. that might be uncomfortable. And then if she turns her head to the left or right or looks up and down, the distance changes. And here it's over the ear or on the top of the head, the position it stays this, relative to the sound source, the distance stays the same. And plus, she's smiling. It just makes her happier to have it up there, right? No comment, Brad? Okay, moving on.
Sorry, my mic goes off. Yes,
Oh,
I had
he
the
commented,
accuracy
but
of
we
what.
couldn't hear him. Yeah, my mic was off. That's the South guy. What's going on?
Yeah, no, it's interesting how some actors love the mic. They almost depend on the mic to be part of their costume, and other people want it to disappear. It's the same with, I'm working at a synagogue at the moment, and the cantor is very particular about he wants the feel that he's been used to. So it's,
Right.
you need to,
You brought up a good point. I'm a singer as well, and I use my microphone on a stand, and I can't do anything unless I see that microphone. It's an extension of me at that point. It enables me to be heard over my excruciatingly loud guitar. So it's definitely an extension of me, and that's what microphones are to performers. Once they understand why it's on them and why it's needed to get to the last row of the house, to allow the director to the freedom of them to have blocking that would permit them to look left to stage left and stage right, or even sing upstage, because normally the big arias in the operas are always sung down center with hands folded, singing right across the conductor's face. So this does give, these microphones and these types of tools give directors a lot more liberty on how they can block these shows and where these singers can project to stage left and still be heard in the last row of the house. We saw this. This is the before, and then after. This is a guy, a talk show host here, who was wearing it here. It was a pain to put on. That was an improvement over the lapel microphone, because when he's trimming the rosemary, all you heard was the shears and the rustling of the bushes, and you barely hear him talk. So it's primarily a theatrical miking technique that has moved itself into broadcast, as well as talking heads, TV shows, and things like that. The advantages are the proximity stays consistent to the sound source, as well as, with the movement of the head. It's easy to get it on there and back off and back into the same place. And it's and a good way to conceal the mic. And the challenges, it's also something that somebody can actually put on and look in the mirror and see if they got it right. So self-miking at one point was really important for hands-free, getting mics on folks. And I think that kind of just goes to all a good hygiene at this point. And the challenges are that I experienced is two things. Is that, like I said, if you're used to having a microphone here, a boom microphone, and you move it all the way out to there, you had to have some game before feedback issues, as well as I had a show where I had a bald actor. We couldn't put it here. That was the choice of the designer, but we put it here. And then when the cast saw how easy that was for this guy to put his microphone on, and he didn't have to weave it through and play with it and get it in and around their hair or wigs, everybody in the show wanted one, but the designer wanted it all in the hair. That was the only disadvantage that I came up with. So another kind of interesting thing is that you could use these to mic a variety of instruments, and the violin comes to mind because it's been done. And Paul here has mic'd Josh. I don't know if you guys know Josh, but he's a fiddle player of some world renown, and he wears it on the other ear. It's on his left ear, so it's out of the camera shot. And so the idea is that the video guys didn't want SM81 on a big chrome boom stand right there and then across the whole orchestra, as you would normally see on a pop show. Tons of microphone stands, and the folks, the violin is pretty special. It's kind of old, and nobody was allowed to put any staples or screws or gap tape or the rivets, clamps, or anything on the instrument. So Paul said, "Why don't we mic his ear?" on the other side, if you can think about it, it is going to remain consistently close to the instrument. And as he moves around, the level doesn't change because his instrument is generally here, and the microphone is on the other. So that sounds gives you a consistent distance. And so there no mounts on the instruments. It gave him the freedom to move about the stage, as well as eliminates the cable clutter because he was going to wireless, and then the visuals without a bunch of boom stands around, kind of cleaned up the camera shots. Sandy here as well moves around, and I found out here recently that she has a lapel microphone here and an ear microphone, and uses both of them to capture the whole sound of the instrument. You can imagine if you mic an instrument this close, uh, and then put it, through a linear sound system, the high frequency and low frequency response is going to be a bit overpowering. So using some EQ, high pass and low pass filters would probably make it sound pretty natural, because no one hears the instrument like that except for these folks. And Paul is a very experienced and award-winning sound engineer, and he loves that technique, and he's used that for a variety of other things. But these are the two shots we had. Brad and I were talking about this the other day, and you can see this must be the King and I, because I don't know any show that would have a vest that nice. And here's one at the neckline. There's a couple of advantages and disadvantages to this, but hiding microphones in clothing gives you multiple locations options, plenty of places to hide microphones, because you can hide them so that you can't see them, make them super concealable. And the challenge is that it's further from the sound um, source, the mouth. It's like about as far away as you can get, as well as you can then have to consider picking up any clothing noises like this brushing against the microphone. Now, there was an instance where I was doing a show called The King and I, and Tuck 10, the young lover, was in a duet with her beau, and she wore a microphone on the top of her head, and for some reason we had to mic him with a lapel microphone. So when they came running across the stage to do the embrace of the last chorus of Young Lovers, uh, um, um, she was singing through his lapel mic, and he was singing through the mic on the top of her head. Now that happened every night, so we were able to adjust it, but there was no way to do it any other way, because he was 10 dB louder in her mic than she could ever be. And then she was singing, embracing him, and singing right into his lapel mic. So we did have to do some gain adjustments on that for that transmitter, so she wouldn't blow it out, because she was singing rather loudly right into it. But yeah, that was a challenge, because when you're having multiple locations, and then you have blocking like that, where cast members are singing into each other's microphones, there can be some um, challenges there. So in addition to another challenge is that if you have it in a costume, and the costume does cover the microphone by accident, then they could make it sound muffled. All right, let's see. Additionally, there, in some of these ways that you would have to either sew these in or use vampire clips or things like that, so you could damage garments. And also make really good friends with your wardrobe folks, because it's really nice at the end of the day when somebody says, "Hey, here's your microphone," instead of sending it to dry cleaning for you. Brad, does that happen to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they don't
And
they don't work after that.
I mean, I was, I guess it was Bernhardt Hamlet on Broadway. The wardrobe guy was on stage, and he had his little kit with him, and he said, "No, we'll just cut a hole right here, and I'll sew it right in for you." And I was like, "Really? Seriously?" And he did. He just did it just like that. And it was because I'd become friends with him. It's because he wanted, the show to go well for everyone. So
Right, right.
definitely make
Yeah.
friends with, everyone. But
Well, you brought up a good point, because I've had some folks that I work with that said things like, "I'm not here to make friends," and I'm like, "You idiot, make friends. They're going to help you." sound is so intertwined in the lighting cables going to your front of the house and the balcony rail and the under balcony fill speakers, the spots, the comms, everywhere. We're intertwined with all departments. And so you have to make friends or you'll be you'll be running your own IR or front balcony camera cable when the lighting guys have already run like 16 miles of cable up there and they could just pull it for you. So make friends, please. So talk to me about this, Brad. You sent these slides in. I don't know who this guy is, but he's what's the deal here?
Uh, that was the last show I did in New York. That was for I Need That with Danny DeVito. And it was really it was a great show. It was a lot of fun. And he was wonderful. He let us do whatever we wanted to, mic wise, and we just had a fun time. This is our mic fitting that we did with him and the rest of the cast.
Nice shot. Awesome. All right, so on the topic of the headset microphones, we were talking about this is kind of like the best game before feedback situation. The microphone is right here at the corner of the smile. The head frame is reversible. A good head frame would be reversible without having to take the microphone off it. So you could flip these earpieces around and turn the frame over to make it it's a left worn here, and then it could be right worn over there. The telescoping bits here make it to fit small or large craniums, as Richard would say. We'd never say head. And the boom is bendable without it being bright, so you can kind of point it to where it needs to go. I think that's it on there. Okay, and then so in the instance of where you have one transmitter and two signals that you would like to capture, and I can think of no better use than to take a show of 30 stomping Irish folks on a stage that's designed to be loud and may have some microphones in it, so some PZMs on the floor. But you really want to capture how loud their stomping is, that you would put a microphone here on each foot, run the cables up, and then put them into these, and then into one transmitter. Now, this does work for signals that are uncorrelated, meaning like this is one foot, this is another. Sure, you're going to hear them both, but who cares if you're going to get a little negative addition or phase cancellation between stomping feet. But I've actually used things like this to mic the top and bottom of harps, or the front and back of the left and right of violins, the soundboard of a rehearsal piano, an upright, putting one on the on the inside of the kickboard is what I call as the front part of a piano where the pedals are. You take that board off, tape a couple of mics inside there next to the harp, and you can get a good sound for your rehearsal piano. So it's basically a Y cable, and each manufacturer is going to have a scheme for this. These work with point source audio microphones. Here's one showing it with the 3-pin Limo. We make one with the 4-pin Mini XLR TA4. But those are work with our products and other manufacturers. If you're looking to use that with another mic, then you would have to consider their wiring scheme as well. The voltage needed to push our microphones from one Sennheiser or one transmitter is plenty for 2 microphones. But again, you'll have to check with each manufacturer before you take hours to hook it up to theirs.
That's
So
really cool.
Yeah, you want to talk about any other?
Well, it just made me think of I was on the Beatles Love in Las Vegas. It just closed recently, actually. And we had one guy that had 3 mics on him, a gumboot dancer, 2 on his feet and 1 on his chest, because he did all the sounds. So I don't know, maybe you should make a threefer.
Right? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Here we go. All right, so some things to talk about with clarity as it relates to getting a good sound. It's, you're best to have a good signal to noise ratio. So microphone placement is, that ratio is related to the signal is the singing, noise is anything else. So you will want to mitigate things and that would be considered noise, like monitors, very loud VLs. We always call the very lights back in the day VL5s were one more louder than the VL4s because very loud is what it stood for. And less reverberation and more of a direct signal, so closer to the direct sound is important again. And then it gives you the opportunity to have a more linear reproduction, meaning like the sound of that singer gets out into the speaker system. What can help with feedback is cardioid. In some cases, cardioid microphone elements can help because they're directional and will pick up less of the speaker nearby. However, not possible in every production, but no vocals in the fullback or monitor systems is kind of a good rule. But as Brad could testify, there will be situations where you absolutely have to. And having a nice linearly tuned sound system and its alignment will also help because you won't have any peaks of frequency peaks that will trigger feedback as well. And then make sure that your performance areas are in isolation from the front of a sound system, meaning you're not dancing and singing in front of the sound system. Muffled sound, having the microphone hidden in the costume sometimes can create a muffled sound. Microphones do get sweated out, so if they are starting to sound muffled, that's a good sign that they might need to be replaced or cleaned. In some cases, the microphones can be cleaned and then put back out again. And then in some cases, if you're wearing it on the chest, having an abundance of low frequency with the chest cavity can make the microphone appear to be muffled. So reducing the low frequency energy by EQing out some of that might help as well. Dropouts. Now, this is, I can't speak to a lot of things about dropouts these days because I know that the quality of wireless systems have made tremendous inroads from the times of when I was touring and we were still using crystals in transmitters and to determine the frequency. They weren't frequency agile like they are now. But and then most manufacturers for transmitters and receivers have some kind of software to hunt for clean or non-busy radio frequencies, and some can even talk to the transmitter and change it if you do run into that trouble. And then there were on Broadway, and I'm not sure if it's still happening or not, but there was a significant amount of radio coordination going on there because within the middle of a Broadway block, if you will, of multiple theaters go by, you could hear if you had a scanner just about any show at any time from anywhere because the transmitters were strong and you can pick them up. In fact, I was in Boston one time with our backstages to another theater and we could hear Blue Man Group coming through a couple of our frequencies. A good idea would also be to walk the transmitters, the entire performance space to rule out any dropouts due to reflections and that your antennas are in great spots. And having an antenna distribution is important as well to mitigate the antenna farm and so that you can get your antennas in and around the performance area. And that's it.